A police officer saves a black baby from being thrown in a trash bin, only to be shocked by tragic news years later. Cassius, a 36-year-old New York City police officer, had just finished dinner at a nearby restaurant and decided to take a walk before heading home. The fresh night air felt good as he walked the dimly lit streets, lost in thoughts of his new girlfriend. They had only been dating for 2 weeks, but he already felt like he had known her for a long time, even starting to think about their future, perhaps someday starting a family. As he turned into a quiet alley, his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a sound that made his heart stop. It was the cry of a baby. He stopped, trying to listen more closely. The cry continued, faint but unmistakable. Cassius's heart pounded as he looked around, trying to find the source of the painful sound. Following the cries, Cassius quickly made his way toward a row of trash cans that lined the brick wall. The closer he got, the louder the cries became. As he approached the last trash can, Cassius hesitated, afraid of what he might see. He took a deep breath, then opened the lid. Inside, wrapped in dirty blankets, was a tiny black baby girl, her face red and wrinkled from crying. Cassius's heart broke at the sight. He couldn't understand how anyone could abandon a child like that. He gently lifted the baby out of the trash can, holding her close in his arms, trying to comfort her. The baby's cries gradually quieted as Cassius held her close, trying to soothe her. "Hello, it's okay. I have you now," he whispered, feeling a strong need to protect her. The little girl's body was hot to his touch, and Cassius quickly checked her for any injuries, but found no obvious signs of trauma. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. His voice was urgent as he described the situation. 911, please. What's your situation? Hello, this is Officer Cassius Rivera. I just found a baby in a dumpster. He has a fever, and I think we need an ambulance right now at the corner of Quinta and Olmo. Understood. An ambulance is on the way. Please stay with the baby until we get there. Cassius hung up and focused on the baby, who was looking at him with big, teary eyes. He couldn't help but feel a special connection to her. It was a protective feeling he had never felt before. He rocked her gently and whispered comforting words. "Who left you here? How could anyone do this?" The time seemed to drag on as he waited for the ambulance. Cassius played with the baby's tiny fingers, trying to calm her. The girl looked at him, her cries turning into sporadic whimpers. "You're so cute. I don't know who did this to you, but I'm here, and I'll protect you," he promised. Finally, the sound of an ambulance siren rang out. Cassius felt relieved. The ambulance arrived, and 2 paramedics rushed over with a stretcher. Cassius explained how he had found the baby, and they carefully took her from him and placed her on a stretcher. "She has a fever, but I don't see any obvious injuries," Cassius said. "We'll take her to the hospital and run some tests," a paramedic replied. "Thank you. I'll follow you to the hospital," Cassius said, not wanting to leave the baby. At the hospital, the baby was rushed to the emergency room. Cassius called his boss to explain the situation and was allowed to stay with her. He waited impatiently in the waiting room, pacing back and forth. The connection he felt with this abandoned girl was unlike anything he had ever experienced before, and he couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone. After what seemed like an eternity, a doctor came out and spoke to him. "She's stable for now. She has a mild case of pneumonia, probably from exposure. We're giving her antibiotics and we'll keep a close eye on her," the doctor said. "Thank you, doctor." "Can I see her?" Cassius asked, his voice filled with concern. "Yes, you can. She's in room 204, the doctor replied. Cassius quickly went to the baby's room, where she was resting in a small bed, hooked up to several monitors. She looked so small and vulnerable. He pulled a chair close and sat down, gently stroking her cheek. "Hello, baby, you'll be fine. The doctors are taking good care of you," he said softly. The baby opened her eyes and looked at him and seemed to relax at the sound of his voice. In the days that followed, Cassius visited the hospital every day to check on the baby. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had a role in the little girl's life. As he spent more time with her, their bond grew stronger. He began to fantasize about taking her home, caring for her, and giving her the love and protection she deserved. Cassius's visits did not go unnoticed by the hospital staff. One nurse in particular, Zelia, noticed his devotion and began chatting with him one evening. "You care about her a lot, don't you?" Zelia asked with a gentle smile. "Yes," Cassius admitted. "I don't know why, but I feel a strong connection to her. I can't just leave. Have you thought about what will happen next?" Zelia said softly. "If no one comes to claim her, she might end up in foster care." The thought of the girl ending up in the foster system, possibly being passed from home to home, broke Cassius's heart. He knew what he had to do. "I want to adopt her," he said firmly. "I'll do whatever it takes, but I want to give her a home." Zelia smiled. "That would be wonderful, Cassius. She would be so lucky to have you as her father." Over the next few days, Cassius began gathering information about the adoption process and talking to social workers. He wanted to be ready for whatever steps were needed. Meanwhile, the girl, whom he had begun calling Inez, continued to recover under hospital care. One night, as Cassius sat by her bedside, Inez reached out and took his finger, looking at him with big, trusting eyes. Cassius felt a wave of love and determination. "I promise to take care of you. Inez, I will give you the life you deserve," he whispered, knowing that his life was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. Cassius spent most of his time in the hospital in the following days. He had taken a leave of absence to be with the baby, who had been diagnosed with a mild case of pneumonia, but was recovering with antibiotics. Every day Cassius visited, sitting by the bed and talking to the baby. Knowing that the baby could not understand a word, he just wanted the baby to feel safe and loved. The nurses and doctors at the hospital had grown accustomed to Cassius's constant presence and quickly regarded him as a familiar face in the nursery. Nurse Zelia often stopped by to check on the baby and Cassius. "You're here again," Cassius, Zelia joked as she entered the room. "You know, she seems to be starting to recognize you. Every time you come in, she seems calmer." Cassius smiled as he looked over at the baby's bed, where he was gently stroking her hand. "I hope so. I just want her to know that she's not alone and that someone cares about her." Cassius found Zelia's words heartwarming, but there was something else that worried him. His girlfriend Ilara had shown no sympathy for his situation. Ever since he told her about finding the baby, Ilara had been cold. When Cassius mentioned wanting to adopt, Ilara had vehemently objected. "Cassius, you can't be serious. This isn't your responsibility," she said. "We have our own plans. Why would you throw them all away for a baby you found in the trash?" Cassius tried to explain, but the conversation ended in a tense moment, with Ilara leaving in a huff. Their relationship had been strained ever since. Every time Cassius sat by the baby's bed, he would think about the future with her, imagining how he would care for her. The thoughts made him smile, though they also made him question his decision. One evening, Cassius was sitting by the baby's bed when he received a text from Ilara. "We need to talk," knowing he couldn't avoid it any longer. He kissed her on the forehead and left the hospital to meet Ilara at a nearby cafe. She was already there, her expression cold. "We have to work this out," Ilara said. "I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's clearly not. You're choosing the baby over me." Cassius tried to explain that it wasn't a matter of choice, but of responsibility. But Ilara wouldn't have it. "If you can't put me first, maybe we shouldn't be," she said, and left the cafe. In the days that followed, Cassius continued to visit Inez at the hospital. He decided to call her Inez because the name gave him a sense of warmth and familiarity. One afternoon, Zelia brought him a stack of papers. "I thought you might want to see this," she said. They were adoption documents. Cassius looked at Zelia gratefully. "Thank you, Zelia. I don't know where to start with this." Zelia smiled. "I can put you in touch with a social worker." "You're doing a great job." Cassius felt a surge of determination. He looked at Inez, who was sleeping peacefully, and silently said, "I'm going to give you a good life." Cassius continued with the adoption process. He filled out the forms, met with social workers, and prepared for the challenges ahead. He still visited Inez every day, and with each passing day his feelings for her grew deeper. His relationship with Ilara was over, but he knew he had chosen the right path. Inez needed him, and he couldn't abandon her. One night, Zelia brought him good news. "Inez is responding well to treatment. Maybe she'll be able to go home in a few days." Cassius felt a surge of joy. He looked at Inez, thinking to himself that she had become the most important part of his life, and he was willing to face any challenge to give her the best life possible. Cassius continued the adoption process, getting closer each day to his goal of bringing Inez home. He kept visiting the hospital, sitting by Inez's bed, telling her stories. One afternoon, while reading a story to her, Zelia walked in with a smile on her face. "Cassius, I have good news. The adoption process is going faster than expected. If everything goes well, you can take Inez home in the next few weeks." Cassius felt joy welling up. "That's wonderful, Zelia. Thank you for all your help." Zelia smiled. "You're the one who works the hardest, Cassius." "Inez is so lucky to have you." Cassius looked into Inez's big eyes looking at him, and he said softly, "No, I'm the lucky one." As the day came for Inez to come home, Cassius prepared everything. He set up a crib in his room, bought clothes and other baby necessities. He even took a parenting class to better prepare himself for taking care of the baby. Finally, the day came when he could bring Inez home. He arrived at the hospital early, nervous and excited. Zelia and several other nurses were there to see Cassius and Inez off. "Take good care of her," Zelia said, hugging him before they left. "And don't forget to bring her to visit us from time to time." "I promise," Cassius replied with a surge of emotion. He carefully carried Inez into the car, double-checking the car seat. On the way home, Cassius kept looking in the rearview mirror, unable to take his eyes off Inez's adorable little face. When he got home, he led her inside, gently placing her in her new crib. "Welcome home, Inez," he said, filled with emotion. Over the next few days, Cassius and Inez settled into their new life. He learned how to care for the baby, from feeding her, to changing her diapers, to soothing her when she cried. Each day was a new challenge, but also a joy to watch Inez grow and develop. One evening, while putting her to sleep, Cassius thought about everything that had happened since he found her. The breakup with Alara had been painful, but at the same time he realized that what really mattered was Inez. Cassius returned to work after a break. He left Inez with a trusted neighbor while he worked. At the police station, he received support from many of his colleagues, but there were also a few who were skeptical about his decision to adopt the baby. One day, while he was sitting in his office, Officer Thane, a close colleague, stopped by and said, "You've done a great job, Cassius. If you need any help, don't hesitate to ask me." But not everyone was supportive. Officer Sergeant Oren, a veteran cop, did not hide his doubts. "You did something crazy by adopting that child," he said rudely. "Don't you think being a cop and a single father is too much for you?" Cassius kept his cool and replied, "I know it's going to be hard, but I'm determined. She needs a home, and I'm not going to give up." Cassius' life gradually stabilized. He began to find joy in balancing work and fatherhood. Every time he saw Inez laugh or heard her say "Daddy," he felt that all the hardships were worth it. His co-workers began to respect his decision when they saw his dedication and love for Inez. One day, while Cassius was preparing to take Inez to daycare, he received a phone call from the center director. "Inez is doing great, Mr. Garcia. She's settling in well and has lots of friends. You should be proud of her." Cassius smiled, filled with joy and pride. As time passed, Cassius and Inez's relationship grew stronger. They spent many beautiful moments together, from playing in the park to reading books before bed. Cassius knew that no matter how difficult life was, his love and commitment to Inez would get them through it all. One evening, after putting Inez to sleep, Cassius sat in the living room and thought about his journey. It all started one night by chance when he heard her crying from the trash can. Now, Inez had become the greatest source of motivation and meaning in his life. Cassius knew that life would be full of challenges, but with his love for Inez, he would never give up. He had found his reason for living, to be the best father he could be, and to give Inez a life full of love and happiness. After months of hard work and sacrifice, Cassius created a loving home for Inez. The relationship between father and daughter grew stronger, and they became a source of motivation for each other. Cassius was not only a dedicated police officer, but also a great father. Inez grew up with love and care, gradually developing into a happy and healthy little girl. Cassius continued to work at the police department, but now he found a balance between work and family life. With the support of friends, colleagues, and the community, he overcame the initial difficulties to become a great single father. Every evening after work, he would come home, hug Inez, and tell her stories of his experiences, helping her feel loved and safe. As the years passed, Inez grew up, and Cassius also went through a difficult but worthwhile journey. One day, when Inez turned 18, Cassius sat with her on the porch, where they often sat to talk. Cassius shared with Inez about the day he found her, about his struggle to keep her and give her a better life. Inez looked at Cassius with eyes full of love and said, "Dad, I always knew that I was born of love, not of circumstances. I am lucky to have you in my life." Cassius could not hold back his tears. He held her tightly, feeling that their love and bond had overcome all obstacles. "I am lucky to have you too, Inez," he replied. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to me." Cassius and Inez's life continues from here on with new joys and challenges. But one thing is certain: they will always face everything together, with unshakable love and trust. The early challenges are in the past, and they can now look to the future with hope and optimism. The story ends with Cassius and Inez sitting next to each other, under the stars, grateful for the life they have built together and cherishing every moment together. For them, home is not just a place to live, but a place where love and care are nurtured every day.